a look at Module 28. And remember correctly to Module 28 on storage. So storage is going to be looking at the retention of information over time. So when we talk about storage, we're talking about storage within the different types of memory. So we're talking about storage within sensory memory, so storage within short-term memory, and storage within long-term memory. So keep that in mind when we're talking about storage. So first thing is that, first thing that we have is sensory memory. So sensory memory is, like we talked about last week, it's very, very short, but we do have this fleeting kind of iconic memory, this visual memory, as well as this echoic memory. So I'll probably do a demonstration of sensory memory tomorrow, but sensory memory, when you look at iconic memory, this is going to be where you see if there's like a flash, if I flash up some letters or numbers up on the screen for a very short period of time, you have this very brief kind of photographic memory, and so very, very brief. And so what will happen is that you will remember it if I ask you what the numbers or letters were right after I showed it to you. For a very brief period of time, you will remember much of it. Okay? Same thing with an echoic memory. Have you ever had this happen where maybe in class or when you're sitting in like maybe in a large group or even talking with a friend and you kind of either space out or you're paying attention to something else and the teacher stops or your friend stops and they look at you and they're like, are you even paying attention to me? And they ask you, what did I just say? Have you ever had this happen? And then you're like, yeah, I was. And you repeat back what they just said, like the last couple of seconds.
Okay? I did that. I was on my iPad one time in chemistry just because we were doing something stupid and somebody had asked a question. There's like 20 minutes answer and everyone already knew the answer. So I was on my iPad and he goes, Colin, what did I just say? And I got it like perfect. Like exactly what he said, the inflection, everything. He was like, how'd you know that? And I was like, echoic memory. Oh, I didn't. I honestly, that was like, I usually listen anyway, but I was not listening to that.
Echoic memory. You remember the last few seconds, okay? So this is the case where I go and ask Tommy, what the heck am I talking about, Tommy? Okay, the point is that you'll remember the last few seconds, but if I go back even further, what was I talking about 5 minutes ago? If you weren't paying attention, you won't remember that. Okay, so it's a very brief period of time that will last in your sensory memory, and it'll be a very brief flash. It's kind of like this lightning flash. Well, you'll remember that for a very brief period of time, but if you don't pay attention to it, then it'll be lost. Okay, so we'll do a demonstration tomorrow. We'll do some iconic memory where we'll look at. I'll flash up some letters or numbers, and we'll see what good you are at remembering those. Okay. All right, and there's also echoic memory. This also explains why, for example, have you ever had somebody tell you their phone number and you briefly were able to remember it? I think last week I told you my mom's phone number, and I had some people that remembered it right after I said it. But do you remember it today?
Something with the 9.
It was 962 or something was the last one.
Are you sure you told us?
I know there was a 9, a 6, a 4, and a 2 in the last one, but I don't. That was the last one, but I don't remember. It was 9642. That was the last
I
one.
remember the midget with the trombone.
Was that right?
361-9229 was my mom's phone number.
Okay, every number except for 4 was in there.
So here's my point: is that you briefly remember it right after I said it, but if you didn't practice it, you're not going to remember it. So it doesn't go into your long-term memory. Who cares, right? But briefly, very briefly, you have a flash. Okay. Working memory. Working memory is limited in capacity. Remember, working memory is the same thing as short-term memory. Okay. What's the capacity of working memory or short-term memory? Remember?
It's more.
How many pieces of information?
Is it 21?
Nope, that's way too many. 9. Close.
7.
7 is the magic number. It's 7 plus or minus
2.
2. 7 plus or minus 2.
So it could have been.
Like I said, it's very close. George Miller was the one that determined the magical number 7. 7 plus or minus 2 is the bits of information that you can remember in your working memory. This is not a coincidence that phone numbers, excluding area code, have 7 digits in it, okay? And, okay, remember last week we talked about chunking, okay? If you look at this information at the top, right, that looks really hard to remember, that series of numbers at the top. However, at the bottom, the numbers underneath it look a lot easier to remember because they're split up, they're chunked already for you. That's why when you actually see a phone number, they split it up like that. So they have the area code in parentheses, and then the rest of the phone number they have split by a dash, okay? It makes it easier for you to remember, okay? Same thing with, for example, maybe dating myself. Do you remember the song, I think it was an 80s hit, and I can't remember, it's Jenny's phone number? Yes, 866-75309. No, it's a song. But here's my point, okay? Here's my point. You remember it because it's kind of a sing-songy little thing. I actually had a job once where I had a boss who used that as like her password into her computer, into a specific program. And I needed to use that particular program, and they weren't going to give me my own password because I was only a temporary person. So she gave me her password for this program. She's like, oh, you probably don't know this, but you know that song. And I'm like, oh, I know that song. So every time I had to put in her password, what did I do?
Sing
Sing the song. 8675309. Which I also have read that they cannot use that phone number anymore because people will continually attempt to call it.
Oh, no. It's like, there's actually, you can use that 1-800. You're allowed to use that number. And every other phone number, like that, businesses like fight over you guys. Like, people call 1-800.
Yes. They remember.
And just to mess with people.
Okay. Long-term memory, on the other hand, has a limitless capacity. So long-term memory, we have a limitless capacity of what we can put in long-term memory. Now, there are some people that are better at this than others. Your book talked about this guy, Rajan, and I can't even guess to pronounce his last name. I'm not even going to attempt it. But he was, do you remember what he was talking about before?
Is it Mahatma?
Sure. Your guess is as good as mine.
Did
That we
you
can say.
memorize like 2,000 digits of
Oh.
binary code?
Pi. He memorized pi. It says he began studying a computer printout of the first 200,000 places of pi. Remember, pi is the ratio between the diameter and circumference of a circle. Pi begins with 3.14159. Right? Okay. So on July 5th. Okay. On July 5th, 1981, he stood before a capacity crowd in Mangalore meeting hall and rattled off the numbers so quickly that the judges could hardly keep up on tallying and keeping up on making sure that he was right. He did this for 3 hours and 41 minutes.
That's like impossible.
Showing how good his memory is with numbers. Okay? He did this up until the 31,812th digit of pi.
What?
Yep. So, he remembers that far, okay? Then his record was toppled in 1987, and then in 1995, that record was toppled again. However, the people after him, they say that his memory was better than the people after him, because it says that he recalled the digits at an average rate of 3.5 digits per second. He had 3.5 digits that he'd say in a second. He was going that fast. The others took a lot longer to remember more digits. So the interesting thing is that his memory is really good with digits, about average with everything else.
Can we show the picture?
Oh, yes.
I'm going to play your trombone
Is it SRT
in a
now?
photo
Or is it-
booth.
It is period 1.
Photo